Welcome back to Buzz Recaps. Today I will explain a romantic drama film released in 2016. Before moving ahead, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. The movie begins in 1967 with a child named Stavros. He was taken to a famous doctor in Athens by his mother because he was becoming physically and mentally weak. The doctor said that Stavros knew everything about Greek mythology, however, now he needed clarification about Greek mythology. And that confusion began when he started mixing present times and ancient stories while listening to the news on the radio after some time. The doctor started asking Stavros some questions about those stories, and he found that neither did he remember any names from the stories nor the natural end of those stories. Later, he also started scaring other children by telling strange and scary stories, and his mother's problems continued to increase. Moreover, Stavros always imagined those women who are in the ancient stories of Greece, and one day, he saw his first love, the Queen of Greece, and he started loving her. After that day, he started to put Anna Marie in the mythological stories and got lost in his imagination. He was living happily by combining real life and his imagination. However, when he heard the news on the radio that the royal family of Greece was being dissolved, which meant they couldn't rule over Greece after that, he started killing every hero of the mythological stories later. The doctor prescribed some medicines and said that it is normal for children to make stories. There is no need to worry. Meanwhile, it was revealed that Stavros' father used to make stories like him, and he used to tell the story of famous people to his customers to sell his bags. Later, Stavros forgot the ancient women, and with time, he fell in love with a new girl who was older than him. He started stalking the same girl with Lucas and some other older boys. Meanwhile, the girl named Elena knew that some boys watched her when she was changing, however. When he told her that some boys watch her while she changes, she told Stavros that she didn't care. Because of Elena, Stavros started making his stories again and started imagining himself as a part of those stories. Moreover, in the meantime, he found out that Elena and Lucas love each other, and they are in a relationship. And again, Stavros was heartbroken. Through his imagination, Stavros began to fulfill his desires while imagining older women. However, by doing that, he needed clarification about the real-life stories, and his principal told his mother that he has dyslexia, which is why he couldn't remember any story. Not only that, he also said that by changing the stories, he is insulting his ancestors and Greek goddesses. Later, there used to be a photographer named Soteris in the same area, who used to take photos for Stavros' father, Thanos. And because of that, people used to think that famous people used their bags. Thanos told him that his habit of making stories of Stavros could put him in trouble, because he always tells every story about the defeat of the Greek army. Moreover, Thanos' wife, Magda, has visited different doctors and she is tired. That's why one day she took Stavros to an astrologer, who told her that Stavros had an ancient disease called myopathy. And the disease occurs when someone goes through a heartbreak, and when he breaks his heart in love, he starts making up sad stories. He also said that Stavros will have to forget every story that he has heard, and he will have to write his own story through new experiences. Later, at home. When Magda tells Thanos that his son is sick, Thanos is surprised to learn that Stavros will have to spend time in a dark room to treat this disease. That dark room was a movie theater where Stavros used to watch news stories every day for years, and he started loving cinema and news stories. However, with time, the whole Greece changed while Thanos' way of working didn't change. And neither did Stavros change his mind. After knowing the truth about his country, Stavros started to raise his voice against the politicians, and which started troubling his parents. Later, to distract him, Soteris gave him work in his studio, where Stavros learned to praise women along with photography. However, every day after his work in the studio was finished, Stavros would go back to the theater, and he started watching films with his two friends, Stelios and Ali, who used to go to the theater. In reality, they wouldn't watch films and get intimate. After the film was over, he used to discuss the film with them. Later, the restaurant where Ali used to work was the home of those people who liked to talk about art and politics. By living among such people, Stavros started learning to give new shape to ancient stories. After some time, he met a theater actress named Betty, who he started liking, while he couldn't talk to her for a long time. The next day, while working in the studio, Soteris told Stavros about his life, and he gave him the first camera of his life. And a few days later, Betty came to his studio to take pictures. Then Stavros told him that he also loves to watch films like Betty, and is fond of getting lost in those films. And while talking about movies, slowly they both started loving each other, and they got intimate. As soon as they came close to each other, Stavros told Betty that whenever he loses a loved one, he starts making stories that drown him in trouble and sorrow. Later, Thanos knew that his son was in love with someone. However, he didn't know who that girl was, and this time Stavros promised to help him. Stavros became a part of Ali and Stelios' group, and soon he got a chance to work on Stelios' first short film. The discussion of that film seemed like an election. Meanwhile, in the discussion, the disease of making a story of Stavros came in handy, and everyone was impressed with his thoughts. On one hand, Stavros was discussing the film with Betty. On the other hand, Stavros was working in his studio, and while working, he got pictures of both Ali and Betty. Seeing them, he thought that Stavros loved two girls at the same time. He also found out that Stavros was working on a short film, and knowing these two things, Thanos was terribly scared. A few days later, Magda went to meet Stavros at his house, and he found out that Stavros was going to go to other countries. Magda herself wanted to travel to those countries, but she could never do that. That's why she is happy for her son. The next morning, Stavros found out that the famous man had died, who used to be a friend of his father, Thanos. His fear proved to be true, and he found out that Thanos is now in the hospital. The doctor told him that Thanos was shocked by his idol and friend's death, although now he is fine. Magda didn't know that he was shocked because now he won't be able to sell his bags with the help of that man's picture. Meanwhile, just like Thanos, it was time for Stavros to face some problems. When he discovered that Betty didn't want to work in his film, not only that, he also found out that Betty was having an affair with his theater director. After all this time, Stavros faced the same situation that always happens. And when his heart broke, he again started making strange and sad stories. Aliki noticed that change, and an unknown man liked what he said. Stavros knew that Aliki and Stelios were going to break up, and taking advantage of that, he tried to go close to Aliki and started to kiss her. However, Aliki stopped him. That day, Stavros found Betty's pictures in the dustbin, and he understood that she was gone from his life, and to make him feel better, Stavros gave him a new lens through which he would be able to see the beauty of the world. Using the same lens, Stavros has got his love. In the midst of all this, Stavros gets the proof that proves that Thanos has been convincing his family and the whole world through a fake story that he is a friend of a famous man. For once, Stavros was upset with Thanos and Stavros, and then he realized that Stavros also inherited the art of making Thanos' stories. Later, he was able to use his talent to apologize and tell her the story in which he had imagined himself and Aliki. After hearing his story, his relationship with Aliki has started. They come close and get intimate, and happily, he started working on his short film again. After talking to his principal, he collected the funds, and his work continued. In the meantime, he was regretting that he couldn't give time to his friend Stelios. Moreover, he kept his regret aside and started focusing on his short film. One day, Stelios told Stavros that he knew about Aliki's affair. Hearing that, Stavros got scared, because he found out that Stelios was talking about Aliki's third affair, about which Stavros didn't know anything. That day, Stavros realized that he shouldn't trust anyone. In an attempt to get out of his sorrow, Stavros went to the astrologer whom he had met in his childhood, and he told her everything about Aliki and Betty. Then the astrologer told him about her first love, and said that no one can forget their first love, and often they come back to their first love later. Time passed and everything started to change again in Greece. This change affected Stavros too, and he decided to sell his studio, because he didn't want to spend his whole life in a dark room. He wanted to give his studio to Stavros, while Stavros refused and said that he wanted to travel and make films. When Thanos said that, he won't be able to earn money by making stories. Then Stavros reminded him that he sold his bags through a fake story. Knowing this truth, Magda was also surprised, and she was happy to know that he started his stories. When he first met her, to impress her, he did all that. In the end, Stavros took Stavros to a graveyard where Stavros' wife's grave was. After a few days, taking all his memories with him, Stavros went on a journey around the world. In this journey, he saw Aliki and Betty in different places, but this time he accepted Stavros' advice, and he saw both of them, and especially the world, from a different perspective, and he started learning the real meaning of life. With that, the movie ends here. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked this video, then do hit the like, share, and comment on this video. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.